All right, we can definitely get started. Welcome everybody to Health to Hope. This is our segment this month. We are going into the holiday season and we're calling this Grief to Hope. Very important topic now during the holidays, especially something we wanted to bring back to you. I believe we did this, I think, exactly a year ago, right, Shonda? We had the same um, we had the same clinicians.
Yes,
They're amazing. Maya, Dr. Ricard.
yes.
Um, so I'm looking forward to
Amazing. Thank
yes,
you, ladies.
yes, yes. So tonight, everybody, we are streaming on Facebook Live as well as New Hope Baptist Church's YouTube Live. So if you know someone that does not have a Facebook, you can always go on YouTube as well and share it. So make sure y'all are sharing and liking this video, putting it on your page so others can watch. I think this will be a great segment for almost everybody tonight.
Mhm.
But before we get started, Sean, I'm gonna have you open up with a short prayer for us.
Okay. Shall we pray? Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you, Lord, for our clinicians. We thank you, Lord, for the uncle, Lord, who is leading our health and wellness ministry. Lord, we ask, dear Heavenly Father, Lord, that everything that we do and everything that we say be pleasing in your sight. Lord, we ask, dear Heavenly Father, that we're able to help, encourage, and support and enrich the lives of all those who are listening. Lord, we ask, Lord, that you would bless our pastor, continue to keep him, heal his body. Lord, bless our church family, Lord. And we ask, Lord, all of this in no other name but Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Yes, so again, welcome everybody. For those of you that are new to Health to Hope or Grief to Hope tonight, we started this 2 years ago, Shonda. How long is it?
Yes,
Well, yeah, we
it's
started
been
it during the
2 years.
pandemic. Yeah, it's been two
We're in the
years.
pandemic.
Yeah, we wanted to have a platform where we talk about health and wellness virtually since we weren't not meeting in person at that time, and we kind of just kept it virtually because I mean, it's simple, it's easy, easy access for everyone to be able to learn. And I think we started off with nutrition health, but then we wanted to branch off to make sure that we are touching on everything that deals with mental health, physical health, spiritual health, everything. And I don't know, it's been a while since we met last Health to Hope. But I think the next one should definitely be a cook along. So, that will be the
You
next
know, I'm
one.
all down for that
Those
one.
are always fun, yes. But tonight we are talking about grief. Um, we all deal with it. Whether it's losing a loved one, through someone passing away, losing a person in your life, um, changes in our life. We all grieve. We all deal with grief. But I think tonight is especially tailored towards dealing with it during the holidays. Family gets together, friends get together, and you may not have those same family and friends together. So, this is a great segment, a great platform for us to share how to cope. It's hard to cope sometimes, especially being alone. So we have two great clinicians today that are going to share some coping mechanisms, some tips that they can give our audience. So if you have any questions, comments, feel free to leave them on YouTube and Facebook. We'll stop, ask questions. This is very conversational, very personable. So don't be afraid to speak up. And even at the end, I believe you will be able to, if you're needing some personal, counseling sessions, I believe these ladies do offer that as well. So without further ado, we're going to start with Miss Myoka Carter. She is actually our church member at New Hope. She's been on here before, and she has some great information. So we're going to turn it over to you, Miss Carter.
Okay, so let me share my screen first. Can y'all see it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, so again, my name is Myoka Carter. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a national certified counselor in the state of Louisiana and in Texas. And so this evening, I'm going to be talking about coping with loss, coping with grief, but coping with a different kind of loss. So my information is a little different, but this is what I want you to think about. Have you ever experienced negative emotions because you lost someone that you loved very much, but they're still alive? I think in our lives we experience a lot, and I think this particular situation, I think we've all lost someone, but they're still alive. And if you ever had that experience, then you are dealing with ambiguous loss. So I'm going to talk about ambiguous loss this evening. Ambiguous loss happens when you're grieving someone who's still living. It happens when someone profoundly changes or disappears. The person who may be dealing with the ambiguous loss may be feeling torn because they may feel like there's hope. These people can either come back or go back to being normal, but then sometimes they're feeling torn because they may not come back to being normal. Can y'all see the slide?
Yeah, but I think it's on the last slide. It's showing the last slide on our end.
Okay, give me a second.
Okay. So while she's pulling that up, that's good. Just starting off, like I said, losing someone, but they're still alive. Like, I think personally, I recently planned a wedding, and people say around weddings and funerals is when you lose people, unfortunately. Friendships end or they distance, but yeah, great example.
Can you see the slide now that says ambiguous loss?
I think
No, we don't see it.
there.
Oh no, what's
And I
going
think
on?
that's awesome that you say ambiguous loss, because I would think that would be a loss that's even harder for someone to still be here and you still have that loss. Because, of course, when they're gone, then the loss is there. You won't see it. But to have them here and not be able and still have that loss, I just think that that would be even more difficult. I never even thought about it like that. So this should be quite interesting.
Yeah, can y'all see it now?
Yes.
All right, I'll probably have to keep it that way. So,
That's
but yeah, like I was saying, sorry for the technical difficulties, but yeah, these people are still here. Think about the people that you probably have lost, whether it's from a medical condition or just from, some behaviors that you just could not handle. And it's okay to grieve. It's okay to have negative emotions behind it. And so, ambiguous loss comes from the term or from the word ambiguity, meaning doubtful, uncertain. So with this particular loss, you feel doubtful, you feel confused because this wasn't supposed to happen. Also, there's a lot of uncertainty because you don't know what's going on, how this happened, how this came about. And so you may be having negative emotions because of the uncertainty. It's unresolved grief, basically, where circumstances lack a clear conclusion, and you definitely don't get a closure. You don't get closure from it. All right, so there are several types of ambiguous loss, and the first type I'm going to talk about is type 1, which is when individuals that are physically absent but psychologically present. So they're not around you, but psychologically they're saying they're present. Some examples could be unexplainable disappearance. Somebody may have been kidnapped or just kind of, abandoned you. Sometimes you don't get the closure. You don't know where they're at, where they are, but you know that, they're still saying they're just not around you. So you have that uncertainty again. So that unexplainable disappearance could affect you heavily. And like I said, like abandonment, think about those who've been put up for adoption. You know, your biological parents abandoned you. You may have had memories, but now you with somebody else or in a foster care system and you no longer see them. So you don't know where they are. You don't know how they're doing. So you don't get that closure. And then you have negative feelings because, you know, you're feeling sad about it because you don't know where they are. Also, a loved one that is incarcerated, those who are in prison or in jail for long periods of time, that can cause some grief as well. You may talk to them on the phone for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or you may go visit them every once in a while, but it's still not the same. They're not presently with you 24/7. So you could be dealing with some negative emotions because of that. Also, someone in the military. Those who are in the military sometimes go on assignments that you may not know about, or you know, they may be in situations that you don't know about. And so that can cause some uncertainty for you. You know that they are alive, or maybe, but it's kind of like you really don't know what's going on, so you're really confused, and so you may be dealing with that type of grief because of that. So I looked through some magazines and looked at some blogs because I really wanted to give you a clear picture of how this type feels. And so one person says it feels like ongoing trauma because there's no answer. It's different from, you know, someone that has died. Death is inevitable. You may not have wanted them to die this soon, but you know eventually everybody has to die. But with someone that's still living, like you have no answers where they are. And so it's ongoing trauma. Another person says, and this particular person was talking about a loved one that was incarcerated. And she said that someone is somewhat kind of like a grieving, like somebody dies, because it is. In some ways, that level of separation, can really make you feel lost because these people are not in your presence all the time. And then there's type 2 ambiguous loss. This means an individual could be physically here, but psychologically absent. This definitely hits home for me. I'm currently going through this type of loss with my mother because she's dealing with dementia. She's physically here, but psychologically, she is not the same. And so, I just kind of want to share that because, I know a lot of people may be going through the same thing, and you may have some negative emotions. You may be on the go trying to make sure that they are good, but you may also have some negative emotions behind it because they are no longer the same. Another example is an individual that may have traumatic brain injury, and they can't come back from that injury. Severe mental illness, again, dementia. Those who may have severe mental illness beyond depression, they may have schizophrenia or other severe mental illnesses that, they're so far gone in the mental illness, and, medication can only do so much. And so they're not the person that you once knew. As well as addiction is the same way. When you're addicted to something and you're so far into it and you can't come back from it, and all you could do is look at them like, who are you? And so you may have some negative emotions behind that as well.
I think I never thought of that being a form of grief. I think, especially in the African American community, we
Mm-hmm.
deal with this, and like we just don't know how to deal with it at all.
No, no, no. It's kind of hard because it's like we want what's best for them, but sometimes there's not too much you can do. You can't control it. You can't control what has happened to them neurologically, and so because you can't control it, that's when you begin to feel sad and lost and hopeless. So Dr. Pauline Boss, which is an educator researcher who came up with the term ambiguous loss, and she wrote books about ambiguous loss. I kind of wanted to give you examples of how it feels, especially for type 2. She gives great examples in her book. She says, unlike death, An ambiguous loss may never allow people to achieve the detachment that is necessary for normal closure. You never get that normal closure because, it happens just like that. It happens abruptly. You don't know how it happened. They're still here. There's nothing that you can do. So it could be very hard. She also says that ambiguous loss makes us feel incompetent because we always want to know. We always want to know what's going to happen in the future. And the fact that we don't know when it comes to these situations can sometimes make us feel incompetent. It erodes our sense of mastery and destroys our belief in the world as a fair, orderly, and manageable place. You may feel like it's not fair anymore. Why did my family member have this condition? My family member didn't deserve this. Our whole family didn't deserve this. And so when you're grieving, you may feel like, it's not fair. She also says that people hunger for certainty. Even sure knowledge of death is more welcome than the continuation of doubt. And lastly, she explains that uncertainty makes ambiguous loss the most distressful of all losses.
Okay, yeah, and we have a comment that was put into the to our comment section on Facebook, where she stated that unresolved issues that cause a person to become withdrawn, the lack of effective communication can also draw wedges that can cause us to become distant. And when you said that, I immediately thought like, wow, I mean, you don't really think of it in those terms, but now that you're saying it, it's like, wow. Now, I
Yeah.
mean, light bulbs just kind of go off, and you're just sitting there thinking, and just not being able to communicate, or not communicating whatever the issue is, and now you don't know what happened, why it happened, and you're not even able to communicate with them. That's even more of a loss.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It'll send you into an emotional roller coaster because you want to know, but you don't know. You can't figure it out. You have no control over that. So, all right. And so our next topic, which fits in the category of ambiguous loss, is relationship grief, whether it is romantic relationships or friendships. And of course, with relationship grief, you lose companionship. You're grieving because you have a loss of companionship or friendship and those shared experiences. Whether you cut the situation or cut the friendship or relationship off, or these particular people walked out of your life, you can still grieve it. And it's okay to have negative feelings after the relationship is ended, even though it might have been the best for both of you all. It's okay to have some of those feelings. And you may feel sad because you have a loss of support, whether it's financially, intellectually, socially, or emotionally. So it's pretty normal. I'm here to normalize that relationship grief is real, whether it's, again, friendships or romantic relationships.
Yeah, I think we all, all have dealt with that. Because even as seasons change, people leave your life, come your life. And it's so people are like, sometimes they ask, they're like, did you have time to grieve? And some people are like, well, I don't know. So I think it's important that people know that it's okay to grieve.
Mm-hmm. Some people
maybe not stay in that same spot forever, but
right. And sometimes they feel like it's not fair to grieve that. It's just a relationship. Because these people are still here, whether I'm talking about type 1, type 2, or relationship grief. Sometimes they feel like it's not okay because you have people that deal with death, and they feel like that's major, but I think every component is major. And it's okay to feel, it's okay to have those moments. It's okay to find ways to cope with it as well. So common feelings, again, from blogs and different magazines, I wanted to get people's testimonials about what they may feel when it comes to relationship grief. Someone said, you feel sad because your hope for a shared future has ended. Another person said you feel hurt and rejected and maybe humiliated and embarrassed. And then sometimes back to numbness again. So again, it's an emotional roller coaster. You may be angry, you may be embarrassed, and then you may just be like, okay, well, I'm over it. And then the next day, it may be, you may be having those negative feelings all over again. And lastly, somebody says the pain of heartbreak can come in unpredictable spasms and can feel surreal while you are experiencing it. As you disconnect from everyone else and find even the smallest of tasks difficult. So you may want to move on, but then, you have those unpredictable spasms when, you finally feel that heartbreak for that person who was supposed to be in your life, but then they're no longer in your life.
And most definitely, I think, you need to take that time to grieve. Grieving is so important. And so many people, even if it's a loss of a friendship, if this was someone you talked to all the time, you did things with all the time, you need to grieve that relationship. Don't just try to replace that relationship with another relationship, whether it be a friend or a romantic relationship. You need to take time to grieve that relationship and kind of sort through your feelings on what happened in that relationship and how you can move forward as a better person in your next relationship.
Right, you're absolutely correct about that. It does take time. You have to take time to heal before moving on.
We do have a
Uh,
comment. Someone says not having time to grieve can cause other unhealthy behaviors, gambling, drinking, anger, depression, lashing out, promiscuity. Which is
yes.
true. Not dealing with it, coping with it. Probably
It
turn
would
something else.
it would definitely have you lost in this world if you don't deal with it. So yeah, they are absolutely right about that. Some common symptoms of ambiguous loss or grief, whether it's type 1, someone that is physically here, not someone that is psychologically here but physically absent, or type 2, someone that is physically here but psychologically absent, or just relationship grief. These are some symptoms that may occur. You may feel hopeless, depressed, excessive sadness, excessive crying, confused. Again, that's a biggie. You're going to feel confused because they're still here. And the fact that you don't know how life is going to be because they're no longer the same could bring a lot of confusion, as well as anxiety. And so you can, when you have those feelings, ongoing stress does occur. And then you may feel like you're in despair. And then physical symptoms, like headaches, digestive issues, loss of appetite, or overeating. Transparency moment. When I deal with grief, whether it's relational grief or any other types, I think I get physical symptoms the most. I remember going through heartbreak and ended up in the hospital thinking it was a virus, but no, just grief. I had stomach aches and headaches, and so it is real. And it was an ongoing thing. Every time I had heartbreak, I felt like I needed to go to the hospital or something. And so my friend and I, we laugh about it now because I'm healed from those particular situations. But every time I say I have a headache now, she's like, "You think about so? You grieving about so and so?"
No.
Like, no. Regular headache.
Oh my God. So that's also sort of like emotional eating, right? Because I know what I talk with my clients, we deal with emotions daily. We probably deal with several emotions daily. Yes, emotional eating.
Inability to sleep could be because of ambiguous loss and grief, and also the increased body aches and tension. You 20 years old and you having body aches for no reason, and it's not the flu. You may be stressed about something that has happened in your life.
You 20, you feeling like you 50.
Yeah, it happens. Okay.
Wow. Never thought of that.
What, Shonda?
I never thought of that. I used to have a coworker that used to tell me that all the time. Like she would just, this would be hurting, that would be hurting. And I never even thought about it in that sense. And I would always be like, girl, you're too young. She was like literally like 22, 23. And I'm like, you're just too young to always have all these aches and pains and hurts. And I'm just like,
but she really
you would
probably
think you
could be
was
dealing with something. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I never even thought about it like that.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And so just like regular grief, and Dr. Record is going to talk about grief when it comes to losing a loved one through death. But you go through the 5 stages with ambiguous grief as well. You go through the denial stage, like this is not happening. I can't, they're not having this medical condition. I think for so long, when my mom started having dementia symptoms, I was in that stage. Like I was trying to find ways to, get her up and going. And I just couldn't accept the fact that, this is her condition. And so I went through that stage for a long time. And then some people go through the anger stage. Like, again, this is not fair. Why is this happening to me? We do not deserve this. And then also bargaining is a stage of grief. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. If I would have done this, then their condition wouldn't have, been, horrible. They wouldn't have, the condition wouldn't have progressed. Or, if I would have been a nice person, this person wouldn't have walked away. You think about those things. And again, depression is a stage when you have excessive crying and excessive sadness. And then eventually you'll get to the acceptance stage. It definitely takes time. Don't think that you're going to accept the situation the next day. Once you realize the loss, you're not going to accept it the next day. It may be years, but it will come.
So you're saying these are the stages, like when you are grieving, this is
Yeah. These are the stages, and sometimes it is not in order. You may deal with depression before denial. You may deal with anger, then you may accept it one day and then regress.
I was about to say, because one day I feel like I accepted something and I went backwards.
Yeah. But I just wanted to identify that there are different stages. So don't think you're going crazy if you do regress or you have these symptoms. Okay, it's just a part of the grieving process. So how can you cope with ambiguous loss? So tips for ambiguous loss. First of all, make sense of your loss. Identify the loss. Again, sometimes we think that, because the person is still here, it is truly not a loss. But in reality, if they're no longer the same, or they have walked out of your life, but they're still here, it's still a loss. A loss is a loss. And accept that it is a loss. You are responsible for making sense of that loss. Yeah, you can come to me, you can come to therapy, and I can tell you, but you really have to accept that this is a loss. And don't bury your feelings. Reach out for and accept support from others just to process how you feel. But I also want you to be careful with that as well. I do recommend going to a professional to process your feelings. Yes, you may have your tribe, you may have friends that do support you, but sometimes they may not understand what ambiguous loss is, especially if they're going through grief, grieving a loved one that has died. They may look at you like, you're not in the same situation as me. I don't understand what you're talking about. And it can cause tension. So you might want to be careful who you start to talk with whenever you are going through these emotions. Also understand the role of control, adjusting the need for control, and accept the uncertainty. Accept the fact that you cannot control these situations. You can't control what happens neurologically. You can't control if the relationship or the friendship didn't work. You may want to, but sometimes it's just the end of a relationship. So accept that you cannot control everything. You're not supposed to control everything. Also, decrease self-blame. It is not your fault that your loved one has a condition. It is not your fault that sometimes people walk out of your life, or it's not your fault that you may have a loved one that's incarcerated. They've made those decisions. It's not your fault that, they can't come around. Sometimes you really just cannot control the situation at all. Again, don't focus on the uncertainty. Don't focus on the future. Don't focus on tomorrow. Because sometimes when you constantly dwell about or dwell on, how my life is going to be because they're no longer the same, it could bring on some more stressful feelings. And then again, like focus on what you can control and what you cannot control. And when I say focus on what you can control, think about those who you may have a loved one who may have a medical condition. What you can control at this point is bringing them to the doctor and just supporting them and loving them. You can't control that their behavior may change. if that makes sense.
Right. And I think a lot of times, like you said, we can go to therapy all day, but if we don't understand and accept what's going on,
Mhm.
we'll never get to that point of, I guess, getting to that acceptance point and not going backwards, so to
Right.
speak. But just
Yeah.
basically, like you said, focusing on what you can control. A lot of times we try to control the situation. We're like, oh, this is how it's going to be. And it's not always like that, so.
And then you're mad at yourself when it doesn't come
Right.
out right.
Exactly.
Then some other emotions come, and you just,
Yeah.
you're no longer yourself, so
Yeah.
yeah. Other tips: give your mind a break. Don't always think about the situation. Don't always try to find a solution. We just said that. Don't find a solution sometimes. Give yourself a break. Set aside 10 minutes a day for meditation or conscious thought. Focus on the here and the now. We call that mindfulness. Focus on, what's going on around you, not what's going on with your loved one that's um, miles and miles away. So, give yourself that time to just focus on, the people that are around you and that the people that are supporting you. And think about what this experience has taught you. With ambiguous loss, there's always a lesson, whether it's from, the perspective of having a loved one with a medical condition, or from the perspective of someone just walking out of your life or abandoning you, or the relationship just ended because it just didn't work. There's always a lesson behind it. And, you might use it to, whatever the lesson may be, you may be able to use it to impact the world. If you have a loved one that has a medical condition, you may want to start a foundation or a support group. So that's another way to cope with it.
We do have a comment. It
Mhm.
says, acknowledge the loss. Try to do what you can in the natural after praying about the situation. Once you made the attempts, accept the outcome of you can't control the other person. Learn the stress relieving mechanisms so you're not left in a dark place. Revisit the relationship if you see changes in the person. If you don't see changes, continue to work on you. Definitely prayer is helpful.
Yes, indeed. It's definitely helping me.
Okay, every day.
Yes, I gotta fall on my knees because it is hard.
Mhm.
So yeah, they made some good points.
Yeah.
Whoever made that was some good points. Another thing for those who are dealing with type 2 ambiguous loss, again, those who have loved ones with medical conditions, remember that your loved one's present doesn't override their past, and it could be easier said than done, but it is important to remember that the person your loved one is now doesn't change the person they were. And so be open to the new relationship. They may be a little different, but you still have a relationship with them. And so be open to how they are now and understand that the illness isn't the person. It's basically just the illness. It's not who they really are. Tips for relationship grief. Make time to nurture yourself. Make time each day to nurture yourself. Help yourself to heal, whether it's being around friends that really truly support you, go on walk, listening to music, whatever brings you comfort. Take that time to nurture yourself each day. Pay attention to what you need as well. If you are in a space where you cannot be around people, or if you're that go-to person and people constantly calling you, it's okay to say no. Right now, you don't need that. So pay attention to what you can handle and what you can't handle in certain situations, especially when you're dealing with relationship grief. Stick to a routine. Those who may be divorced or ended a relationship with somebody, y'all may have you probably had a routine, and now that the relationship has ended, it's time to develop a new routine. You always want to keep a routine because you don't want to feel like your life is in disarray. So you may not want to continue the old routine, but try to find a new routine. Take a time out. Don't make irrational decisions. If you're dealing with heartbreak, the next day, don't say, I'm moving to Texas. That's an irrational
People
decision.
love to move to Texas, child.
Or I'm gonna quit my job.
Relationship ended. I'm going to Houston. No.
Yeah, I can't be in the same place as him. I can't be in the same place as her.
Okay, right.
You know, and maybe later on that may happen. You may have to move later on, but the
Not
next
tomorrow.
day, not tomorrow. You know, take time out and really get your head cleared before making decisions, and they may take several months, but don't do it tomorrow, like you said. That's right, Bianca. And explore new interests. When you are dealing with a divorce or breakup, it could be hard to find new interests, but there are stuff out there again that can bring you comfort. Is you have to explore. This is your time after a breakup. Is your time for self-exploration. Don't just lay in the bed. You have to explore, because there is, a bright side. There is better out there
Yes,
for your
Lord,
future.
there is.
Preach on it.
Amen. Testimony over here.
You hear me? All right. So also avoid negative thinking that you caused the situation. It takes two people. You may not be the only one that may have brought problems in the relationship, or you may not have brought problems at all. But stop blaming yourself, thinking that you were the cause of the relationship ending. Normalize your anger and guilt, but express it in a healthy way. Do not go key somebody's car whenever you feel angry. Don't do things again irrational when you're feeling angry. It is normal to feel that way, but
don't go to jail.
Yes.
Yeah.
Talk to someone if you really want to express it. That's a healthy space, a safe space.
Well, hold up. Well, didn't you say to go express yourself and to get it all out? Maybe there's a formal way to get
I did.
out.
I said, but in a healthy way. Crying up
in somebody's car is not healthy.
No, that's not healthy. Okay.
Or slashing their tires.
Not healthy.
No,
okay.
No.
Okay. All right.
All right. And also make your own closure. Sometimes with relationships, you don't get that closure. You may want it, you may never get it, but you can make your own by writing the letter to that person and just letting it be, or writing a letter to yourself in order to get that closure. And accept the current situation. And it is also okay to still have love or like that person and still move forward. Like, you can like the fact that they're thriving. If you go on their if you see them on Facebook and they're doing great things, you could be okay with, the fact that they're doing great things. They're not exempt to thrive. And so it's okay to not be in a relationship or not have that friendship and be happy for them. Just accept the current situation. Lastly, don't fight your feelings. It is normal to have lots of ups and downs. It's normal to feel conflicted and confused, but don't fight it. Don't feel like the way you're feeling, you're not supposed to feel that way. Again, talk about how you feel and remind yourself that you still have a future beyond that particular
Whatever
situation.
that relationship is. Mm-hmm.
Life goes on, and your future's gonna be greater again. Without without the relationship, things could get better, will get better.
Yeah, someone commented and said being open and honest with their true feelings. Minister Lofton did say, don't think a new relationship is going to fix the loss and the damage of the old one.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Most definitely.
Yeah. So I wanted to have a conversation, but I don't think we have time. I wanted to, see how you all have been dealing with ambiguous loss, and to see if you had some practical ways that you've been dealing with it. But I do want to give time for Dr. Ricord, but this is my information for those who may need some additional support from the therapeutic side. And so it has my website, my email, and my number, as well as the location. And I think y'all probably going to have it in the comments as well. But, I hope that, what I did present was very informative, and I'm going to turn it back over to you all.
Yes, this was awesome.
Amazing. Thank you.
We talk about this and we experience this in life. We don't really think of it as grief. I mean, these are normal things that happen every day, and we don't even look at the grieving side of things.
Mhm.
We've been having some conversation here on Facebook, so it's been really, really good. I think the last comment says, find a why, find a reason to want to live healthy again. I think that's a good.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
Yeah,
I like
definitely. Because I
I'm gonna
mean,
steal that.
I know, right? Yeah, I mean, because you have to live again after that grief. I
Yeah,
mean,
right,
can't stay in that same spot. But yeah, thank you again, Miss
right.
Carter.
Thank
That
you.
was awesome.
You're
That
welcome.
helped me out definitely. Um, but now we're gonna turn it over to Dr. Ricard, and I wanted to say congratulations, Dr. Ricard. I think this is your third year with your business,
Yes.
so I think it's the anniversary. So
Yay,
congratulations.
Thank you.
congratulations.
Yes. So we're gonna turn it right on over to you.
Alrighty, share my screen here. You would think I would know Zoom by now, but I don't. So can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so today we're talking about surviving the holidays during loss. I just want to just jump right into what to expect. So usually during the holidays, and you're dealing with some type of grief, I think Ms. Carter did an excellent job of giving a name to some of the losses that we just don't realize that is lost. Like we were talking about, loss of a relationship, a change in a relationship, a change in job status, the things that we go through that's everyday life is still considered grief. And I don't have it on my screen, but I want to sometimes clarify that there's a difference between grief and depression. I know a lot of people try to associate the two, but just for clarification purposes, I'm just going to give a small context to that. That just because you're in grief, that doesn't mean you're depressed. Okay, so grief means that there is an identifiable loss, meaning you can put hands on what that loss is. Like, okay, I lost my dog, or I lost my mother, or I lost my dad, or I lost the relationship, or my best friend and I are no longer friends, or I had to go from working part-time to full-time, or I had to go back to work after having a baby. All of that is still grief now, because it's talking about change. So any change can really be trigger grief. The difference with depression is the specific loss may not be identified. You really can't call what it is. You just are feeling, sadness. The difference with grief is that a person who's grieving has a focus on the loss itself, whereas a person with depression, the focus is self. Grief focuses on the loss and depression focuses on self. Grief can have fluctuating feelings of pleasure, where someone depressed has the inability to feel pleasure. Okay. Grief, the closeness of others can still be comforting, whereas someone that's depressed, it cannot really feel that comfort from things that may have found to be comforting prior to becoming depressed. A person who's in grief has a wider range of emotional expression, where someone that's depressed kind of feels stuck with kind of the same emotions. They don't really have a large palette, okay, for their emotions. Also, someone who's in grief, their self-esteem is still intact. Whereas someone with depression, they have a lot of feelings of worthlessness, a lot of feelings of like self-loathing. So just want to clarify that you can be in grief and not depressed. And I want to just give my biases. I am in grief. I lost my dad last year. Sudden, like literally, just gone within seconds from a heart attack. So that was so sudden that, when we experience that type of loss where it's sudden, we can't make any sense out of it. It's just the mind doesn't know what to do with that. So it looks different. And so I want to start off with what I've said so far, and also make a point here that we need to accept the fact that we're different after grief. We're different. And I think we try to go back to who we may have been before. There is no going back. You can move forward, And not try to say, well, I used to be able to do this. Well, just like Ms. Carter said, we can make new normals, honor some of the traditions, but we also need to be able to be present. And so it's okay to admit that you're not okay. And I think that this is what's missing in our society now. No one wants to say what sounds so simple right now in this type of setting. They don't want to say that I'm really not okay, because we're used to the person we've presented to people. We're used to, hey, you know what? I'm always making people laugh, or I'm the strong one, I'm the go-to. And that go-to, that strong person, the one that, is there for everyone, doesn't want to say the hard thing, because we lose something if we say that. We lose the accolade of being strong. So it may sound weird, but we kind of get reinforced with all of this, what people can depend on us for. But we really, it makes us less vulnerable, and we don't have a safe space anymore where we can just say, you know what, we can't set the boundary. We can't say, you know what, I reached my capacity for today. Can we talk about this tomorrow? We think that we just have to keep showing up the same exact way. So we lose our space to say we're not okay. And then we also don't know how to deal with those difficult emotions. We try to avoid them. And so this is something we can start to dialogue about as we talk about what is to expect when we're dealing with grief and loss during the holidays. So I'm gonna take a break. If y'all want to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, a lot of times our normal response when someone says, "How are you today?" "I'm okay."
Mhm.
And I feel like 9 times out of 10, when you're saying I'm okay, something's probably wrong.
Yeah.
I'm speaking for myself, because sometimes you
Absolutely.
don't want to go in depth into like what's going on. Like I could be sitting here for hours telling you what's going on.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
And that comes from
I'm
practicing.
okay. Yeah.
And that comes from practicing pausing. I like to pause. I used to do that, like that automatic response of like, yeah, I'm good. So just take a moment to pause, kind of orient yourself. I'm gonna use a term that I use with clients: allow yourself to get back into your body and stop the performing, stop the achievement, and just pause. And then see if that's the response you really want to give. Or is this a person you can be vulnerable with? Maybe it's not appropriate. Maybe, you're just at the checkout line and just normal chit chat.
Right.
But if someone is reaching out to you and say, hey, you came across my mind, or maybe you're the person who wants to reach out, just, you can't make anyone tell you that they're not okay.
Right.
But I think all of us should be more present and more honest about if we're really not, because you can't heal what you don't talk about.
That's good.
Well, yeah, that's real good. Thank you. Because, I think that that's one of the things that I do a lot too, is, when someone say, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing good. I mean, everything could have all hell could have broke loose earlier that day. And I'll still like, oh, I'm okay. You want to be, I'm that strong person. I'm going to this, and I think that's the problem of knowing or wanting to be vulnerable with people.
Absolutely.
You may not want to be vulnerable with people because you don't want people to look at you in a certain light. So you are not as vulnerable as maybe you should be. And I think when you said that, I was like, ooh, wow, that hit me like real hard, because I know I do that.
Yeah, but
I do that.
But if you notice how you feel in those tough times, if you do a lot of I'm okay when you're really not okay, look at how you feel when you're having a vulnerable moment, or you just really need to feel your feelings. You can't. It's almost like you feel like an imposter. It's almost like, vulnerable feelings are for everyone else except me. So you don't ever get used to the feelings of those other emotions that are also on the wheel of the emotional wheel. They're there. And I don't like to label any emotion as negative or positive. I just call it's just information. It's just information. It tells you where to look. So we need to not call emotions bad, good. They're emotions, And so that brings me to my next slide about how much grief changes you. When you experience loss, again, you're different. For many, this looks like having a shorter capacity for interaction. So when I work with grief, my own grief, and also work with clients, they notice that they're more irritable. Their range is a little shorter. So what used to be like, oh, I can tolerate this, or I can go out and spend 3 hours at a restaurant. They're like looking at their clock an hour and a half. It's like, I got to get back home. And we need to meet ourselves where we are. We don't need to negotiate and try to push against our own boundary. If you notice that your social battery is starting to get to an end, it's okay to communicate that, or maybe drive your own car and say, hey, I'm going to head out. Just you need to get back, like I said, back to your body, back to where you were. You don't need to make feel bad about, hey, I had to leave the party early, because the holidays kind of has this narrative of everybody should be cheerful, and you see families and, PJs and coffee, and there's this expectation that, togetherness, and that may not be your story right now. You may be at odds with family members because of a loss. People may have changed their relationship with you because that person that linked you all together is not there, you see. And so, you used to be able to go do this, and now, what house do I go to now? Or, we used to go to Big Mama's house and go over there, so we need to start being a little bit more present, more here and now, and negotiate with these outings, parties, different things that we're being invited to see check in with yourself first. I have this saying with myself of, I need to ask Christiane if she's okay with what I'm pulling her into. So that way I'm meeting that, I'm taking off the performance, off the shell, off the first person, and I'm kind of doing a little shadow work of, do I have the capacity for what I'm getting ready to do? And then do I need to see if I could maybe go for not the full time, but maybe I can go for half the time. So you really need to be a little kind, more compassionate to yourself during this time. So I'll pause for comments.
We have a comment on Facebook.
Sure.
It's actually my mom. She said, thanks for the distinction between grief and depression. And also Miss Brenda says, after the loss of a loved one, it's a process in getting to actually being okay with the new normal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah, it's making that adjustment, and that's actually on a later slide. I'll kind of point to that. My first piece of advice for dealing with grief on holidays is to allow yourself to feel your feelings. I know it sounds cheap. It sounds like, girl, what? But feel your feelings. So as best you can, allow yourself to feel things as they come up. So grief often brings up conflicting emotions, because remember, well, I didn't say this earlier, but two things can be true at one time. So I know we're kind of taught like only one thing can be true, but no, several things can be true at once. So you can actually feel sad and still thankful and joyful at the same time. I don't have to lean towards one or the other. So you can feel sad here and then also still experience some holiday cheer the next moment. All of your feelings, sad, happy, joyful, thankful, grateful, are all valid all at the same time. Okay, there's no competition there. And there's a space to give them all range to be there at the same time. So you can give yourself permission to feel all of that without any judgment. It's also important to allow yourself to feel any challenging emotions. And notice I'm not saying bad, negative, just challenging, such as sadness or disappointment. Feelings that go unacknowledged and unexpressed often build up. So if you think about a trash compactor and like pressing down that, the trash that's there is still there. So it doesn't go anywhere. So you don't want to, allow a lot of emotions to build up. I like to let a little air out of the balloon at a time. So also on top of those feelings, you have the holiday season that may increase this attempt to like pile on and build up and perform and try to go and do all this stuff, because there's this societal expectation that we're supposed to be jolly. So we need to set aside time to feel our feelings. So this is going to sound weird, but I'm gonna say it anyway. You need to give yourself space and time to acknowledge and express whatever feelings are coming up for you as they come up. So it can be helpful to keep a grief journal. So just go get a little tablet, a Spark notebook, or a journal from Dollar Store and just write. No, don't worry about sentence structure. Don't worry about punctuation. Whatever comes to the pen and paper, just be present with yourself. It could be short phrases. It could be one words, just sad, lonely, whatever comes up. Just allow yourself to be present in your grief journal. Not only that, You want to set aside worry time, set aside sad time. So actually, if I was to look at your calendar, if you're a planner, I should see sad time at a specific set time, because guess what? We know we still have life to live. So I would rather me organize my grief, set aside time for it, than to allow it to interrupt, and I have these, and even if that's the case, if that's where you are, that's okay too. But there are ways to honor your grief, and it doesn't have to be, all over the place. So because I know it's coming, I'll allow for it to visit. I'll pause.
Okay. I like that. You set a little time on the side.
And set some time on the side. And for me, because of the work that I do, I really have to set time on the side, because I have my grief, but I'm also a counselor. So sometimes, another weird moment, I may have to trigger my own grief. So I may play a sad song on purpose, because my feelings get stuck in helping others so much. I can't find my way through the grief. I know it's there, but it's hard to express it. So I may play like a Dance with My Father again, something to kind of get me going, and then I can make use of that time. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Yeah.
I never thought about that, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times we bottle things in, like we don't release, so we don't go to therapy, we don't talk to people, and then one day we just blow up. Right?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So sometimes I like to poke the bear myself. And then that way I let it out. Some of us just need to get out a good cry. We've been being strong for others. We're the go-to for people we can't go to. We just don't have it, and so we really need to allow ourselves time. So the next point brings me to identify your emotions. So when you're able to name some of those emotions, you get a chance to manage them better. So when most times, we are saying two emotions like happy or sad, there are more emotions on the emotional wheel than happy and sad. And some of them include happy, sad, silly, proud, annoyed, surprised, excited, angry, worried, scared, loved, sick, calm, bored, sleepy, hungry, embarrassed, ashamed, jealous, worn out, hyper, confident, distracted, confused. I can go on and on. Guilt, lonely, overwhelmed, on edge, invisible, strong, secretive, resilient. So it's so many other emotions. And one of the things I look for someone who's progressing with their grief during the holidays is to see how many emotions that they can name. So if you're only giving me 2 speeds, I'm going to have to do some emotional intelligence. So to give you the language, because one of the things you're going to know how you're measuring your grief during the holidays or any other time, because grief is hard, to be honest, grief is hard in any season, but we're talking about the holiday season, and it's the language. That's what I'm looking for. And when people start to give more language to how they're feeling, I'm like, yes, like that's it, because I know what's coming next. I know you're moving through the grief because you're able to describe it in different ways than I felt sad. They're able to, like I said, name some of those other things there. Also, don't resist grief. So it's here, you have a loss, that there's something going on. Resisting the grief can cause more suffering, and also can cause us to distort what the holidays can actually offer us if we were to able just to let it in. So I'll pause for comments.
So,
As Blacks, we need this re-education, and also
exactly.
someone said release, very important.
I didn't hear that last part. Say it again.
Release, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I was just going to say, when you're talking about being able to talk about and speak on and more so express their feelings, or express it in more words than just oh, I felt sad today, being
Yeah,
able to say,
sure.
I was really disappointed in myself because I did X, Y, and Z, then that takes you to a
That's
whole
it.
nother level. And then you can see it for yourself
Correct.
on where these things are happening for you and why they're happening,
Yeah.
because now you're even able to talk about it more on a deeper level than just a kind of surface level. That's what people will say, well, how you feel? Oh, I'm sad today. And and that's kind of it. But you're not saying that you are, that you're devastated,
That
that
part.
you're feeling horrible, that all you want to do is lay in the bed in a
That's
fetal
it.
position, and
That's
things
it.
like that. So that, I mean, it's just
Absolutely.
wonderful.
You hit the nail on the head. That is it. That's what I'm listening for. Is the language there. Next point, tips to cope with grief during the holidays. The pain that you're feeling is almost at odds with that. That's the spirit of the holidays. Where you're in more quietness because you have to try to make sense of what's expected of you. And if you play a major role at the holiday table, and people may not know how much you're suffering. Um, you, like I said, again, keep a grief journal. Also think about where you may want to celebrate the holidays. So if it's too painful to do it in the same place in the way you've done it, consider changing the location. I know my first year without my dad, we went to Florida. I just didn't want to be home, so we did Christmas in Florida. It also it's okay if you want to keep things as they were. Up to you. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. Now we'll challenge you, just the educator and the counselor and me. I do say grieve. There's a way to grieve with grace. You don't have to fall apart. You can, if you do and follow the tips, you can, there can be God can give you a grace in the way to grieve, that honors the loss that you have, honors the new person that you're becoming, and honoring your journey here. Also more tips is to plan ahead. Plan ahead and speak with those key people in the family and friends to ensure that everyone agrees about the traditions that will or will not be honored this year. Remember, everyone grieves differently. When several people lose, a person, everyone is grieving, but they do it in different ways. So if you lost a parent, for example, be considerate of how your siblings decide to celebrate. They may want to go to the gravesite. You may not be a person who likes to go to the gravesite. So it doesn't mean like you can, no one has to put down on how someone decides to grieve. It's just let everyone do what they feel is best for them. But in terms of the collective, you want to make sure that you all plan ahead for how you're going to honor this year's tradition during the holidays. Also be honest with friends who try to get you to go out and just kind of get over it. Let them know that you're not ready. They don't have to understand. Just let them know, hey, that's not where I am right now. Take baby steps, pace yourself. One thing with God grief, like Ms. Carter said, you can experience the 5 stages of grief out of order. It's not a set order anyway, but one day you may feel sociable and you accept it, and then the next day you're curling up on the couch in the fetal position. So accept both. You're not wrong for either one. You're still you. You're just going through grief. Number 2, show yourself compassion. Be kind to yourself. Acknowledge that it's going to be hard to get through the holidays. If you're feeling up to going to a friend's or family's home, go. But if you don't, give yourself a pass and stay home and choose not to celebrate. Take care of your body. Grief is often a very physical experience. I remember seeing a book, it says, depression or grief hates a moving target. It is so true. You got to move. You got to get up and exercise. You got to do something physical to make sure that you don't get stuck in grief. There is a proper way to grieve. I will stand 2 feet on that. There is a proper way to grieve. And part of that is taking care, eating nourishing foods, drinking plenty of water, making sure you're practicing that self-care, keeping your physical body up. Make sure you exercise. And you may not have a gym membership, but doing something at home. I tell my clients, go to five and below, whatever it's called. Get your few barbells and a yoga mat and just start doing something to get you moving. And what I really, really like, and I said this on the last one, rituals. Rituals are so important in this grief process. It's not about the frequency as much as it about the same thing around the same time whenever you choose to do it. So if you choose to do meditation on Tuesdays and Thursdays, do it at the same exact time on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It's in the ritual that your body begins to develop another normal, and it feels like you get stronger. But if you're all over the place, if you meditate at 9 o'clock on one day and then 11, that's not going to work. So I'm not even looking for you to do it every day. Just whatever day you choose, it needs to be look almost identical.
I have a question, Dr.
Yes.
Ricard.
Sure.
My question was, you said to, like, if you don't feel up to going out or celebrating at that particular point for that person, that's fine. But as the family, you know, how should the family deal with that? Like, maybe the family feels like the person is, like, you know, trying to silently grieve, pull away, be detached from the family. So how do you know if it's a harmful type grieving process, or if it's more, or healthy, like that they don't want to attend and don't want to do things?
I see what you're saying. Okay. So the only thing you can do is check in. So one of the things that I like to do in those moments, if we are looking to see if the person is just withdrawn and they're getting worse, maybe that it's not a form of self-care for them, but they're just, like you said, removing themselves out and it's harmful. The only thing you can do is, talk to them, ask them to see if you can make negotiation on, how they would like to receive help or if they even want help. One thing we have to see if this is a child or a grown-up, because we don't control what other people do and how they choose to grieve. So all we can do is try to not judge, but also extend that hand and say, hey, look, this is how we're going to do. Can I bring you anything? Do you think you can stand for maybe an hour of socializing time? You can only ask. And then, because I my next slide, my last slide talks about boundaries. So did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay. And then the next thing is ask for help and support. The holiday season often adds additional tasks. We got to go out and get those Christmas gifts. And if you celebrate Christmas, or you need to go and cook, and you're the one that's bringing this and bringing that. So we have like more work to do during the holidays than probably any other time. And so sometimes we just don't have it. Decorating can feel like a huge mountain. Trying to get into the holiday spirit. You sometimes just don't have the energy. And so you may need to ask for help and say, hey, look, can you wrap my Christmas gifts for me? Hey, can you go down and mail this off for me? Just okay to ask for help and get that support. One of my favorite topics is boundaries and expectations. We need to control our expectations. Number one, for others, especially for others, because we're not in control of what they do. But we need to make sure that we set those boundaries. So you want to set up realistic expectations for yourself and others. If it seems impossible to think about getting through the holidays without shedding a tear, then don't expect that from yourself. So if you know you're not in the gift giving spirit, just skip it. Maybe you can't go do them all. I've been noticing people with grief, they get more overstimulated quicker. Like they're not everyone, but some people just can't do the crowds anymore. They can't do all the many different faces, and they can't handle like just being around too many people. That's okay. So you might want to talk with family members about doing a different type of gift exchange where, Secret Santa. Maybe you can only buy one gift for one other person. Maybe you don't have the capacity, the finances, or the energy to go and see what everyone wants and get it wrapped and send it out. And this is just a little side note I put here as you are grieving during the holidays. It's okay to be happy. We talk about grief, but it's okay to be happy during the holidays. It doesn't mean that you don't miss the person. It doesn't mean you don't love the person. There's some times where people are in grief, but they're happy. But I've seen people grieve the fact that they're not grieving. But that's for another day.
Oh, I was about to say, ooh, that sounds like a whole nother topic.
Yeah. All right. Now, the last point is communicate those expectations early. So I like a planner. I really do. You want to make me proud. I love someone that has thought about who they are now. They have made, some adjustments. They thought about it. They're intentional. They went up, they say, hey, look, this is where I am. I don't know, it might change, but I just want to kind of drop a bug in your ear. So loss affects people in their own unique way. You want to go ahead and communicate clearly with those who may be expecting you to show up in a particular way. And I said this earlier to someone about how the self, we think about us in our wholeness, but sometimes there gets like fragmented pieces of ourselves, and that's the part of the self that that person is familiar with. And see, they don't get the whole, they're not getting the whole person. They're getting what you've always done, their preference. So this is going to require a little bit more communication. So remember that everyone's grieving process is unique to them, and what you each want and need during this time may look different. So opening up the dialogue, and you may even come to a point where you can dialogue with certain people in your family. I mean, let's just be real. Some people don't have the emotional intelligence to communicate with you, and that's where you need to set those realistic expectations. You know, you just got to know who you're working with. So, and that way you don't put yourself in a vulnerable position with someone who's not going to honor your vulnerability.
Comes with the boundaries too.
Yeah.
You know that when you talk to this person about something and it turns into something else, like I think there should be a boundary set, like, hey, let's not talk about this.
Absolutely.
Things to a whole nother level, and it shouldn't, so I think that's very important that we communicate and be vulnerable with that person.
You brought up an excellent point. I don't know how I missed it. Boundaries are not commands for other people. Boundaries are a set of behaviors that you do under certain conditions. So this is not a boundary. Bianca, you can't talk to me like that. That's not a boundary. A boundary is saying that, Bianca, if you talk to me like that, I would not be continuing the conversation. A boundary isn't saying you can't talk to me or call me on weekends. No, you can. But if you call me on weekends, I would not respond until Monday. So boundaries is not for what other people need to do, it's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
So people can do whatever they want.
Right.
What are you going to do under said circumstances? That's a boundary. Moving on to embracing the now. When we grieve, we tend to live in the past, reliving the trauma or memories of the one we lost. Now, memories are important. They're very important, but within reason. In order to take the next step, we must embrace the present to manifest the future. One of the easiest and most effective techniques that I recommend is mindfulness and meditation, something Ms. Carter brought up. Meditate, but in a ritualistic way, not all over the place, not different times of the day. Try to remember that grief isn't something you need to rush through or push away. It's okay to recall fond memories of your loved one. It's a healthy part of the grief process. Be careful of your go-to coping skills. Alcohol seems to be a go-to for the holidays. People, drink, if you already drink socially, be careful. Be very careful of your alcohol consumption. People try to self-meditate or modify their emotional state. When you're grieving, the intensity of your feelings may make alcohol feel like an escape. What I ask is, I can't tell you what to do, but look at why you're drinking. Are you drinking because you want to check out and you don't want to feel your feelings? I would advise you not to do that. Try doing something else instead, talking to a friend, getting some exercise, or taking a nap, but don't drink too numb. So watch your go-to coping skills. And my very last slide is I want to be encouraged. I want to leave you with two scriptures, 2 Corinthians 4, 8-10. We are hard pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. Psalm 71:20, regardless of the troubles and despair, God has something better planned for you. He will use the bitterness and the troubles to restore your life into something so much better than what you could have imagined. Although suffering is never a small thing, God is always greater, and his psalm is a promise that nothing can touch you except what has been carefully filtered through his hands. Whatever heartache he allows, he's not the author of everything, but he allows things to fulfill his purpose and plan.
That's good, yeah. And I think Ms. Carter even said,
good.
Usually when we go through loss and grief, there's usually a purpose behind it, or there's a lesson to be learned. Because a lot of times we don't understand why, and we question God, and we, question everybody around us, and we're trying to figure out why is this happening, and but I think we just need to take some time to, of course, pray.
Sure. And we can reframe. You can always reframe. Like I said, I can look at it from, oh my God, I lost my dad and I don't have anyone now. Or I can look at, what, we had good times. I can focus on that positive. I can also look at the strength that I gained. I can look at the strength that has come. Now I'm able to assist other people in their grief. And so I tell people, if you don't want what you went through, then you have to return the strength. You can't keep the strength and lose the sword.
I'm sorry, can you say that again, please?
I said that I tell people, if they don't like what they've been through or they don't like their story, then they have to return the strength. You gain something when we go through challenges. We need challenges. We need them. There's no other way we get to where we are without them.
That is so true. Yeah. We have to
Wow,
learn
that's
from our
awesome.
challenges. Yeah, we have to learn from our challenges. That was great. That another
Yes.
great presentation from Dr. Ricard.
Awesome. Amazing.
Yeah, another look on and another take on grief. Definitely that we can learn from. I'm trying to see if we have any last comments or anything. Let's see. Someone said, "Awesome, thank you, ladies. This is much needed and appreciated. I really enjoyed this. I just lost my mom a few weeks ago. This was very needed, very informative. As always, Dr. Ricard, I'll let you share. Are you accepting more patients or people right now, or? Oh, can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm not accepting new patients right now, but I do plan to at the beginning of the year. I just need some time to get some close out for the end of the year and kind of reset and for the beginning of the year.
Okay.
Mhm.
And Ms. Carter, are you accepting clients? Or y'all have any resources where people can maybe reach out to other counselors?
I also will be accepting clients at the beginning of the year, but it will be the younger population, children, teens, and those who may be in their early 20s. Just trying to get them to come to therapy and get the necessary help that they need.
Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing.
Because being in the school system, you see all kind of things with these
Mhm.
students and kids, and they don't, we don't know what's going on in their homes, and they're
Right.
dealing with a lot too.
Right.
See a lot of depression, and of course, we see a lot of suicides lately, especially when
Yes.
our age and younger. So I think that's very important to
Yes.
offer that for children as well. Any other closing comments, you guys? I think this was a time well spent.
Yes. Oh, thank you guys so much. This has truly helped me as well. Just because, of course, everybody has loss, everybody has grief. And, around the holidays, you do miss those seats at the table. So this was so wonderful. If anyone needed some actual therapy now, is there anyone that you ladies could refer them to if they needed someone like right now to try to get in immediately to see?
Yes, so they can still reach out to me. I act as a referral as well. So I work with them until I make sure that they find a therapist.
Same here, and also they can utilize Psychology Today, that website. You just start calling around. There are plenty of therapists in the area.
Mhm. And Dr. Ricard, did you give your contact information? I know I saw Maya's. Did you give your contact info?
I did not. I'll post it in the comments. So I'll put my I'm actually on the Facebook Live on my phone, so I'll go ahead and post it there.
Can y'all both do that? I do have someone that looking for a therapist for her teen daughter. Just having someone for her to speak with. So if y'all can both kind of put that on the Facebook Live for everyone to see. Awesome. Well, y'all, again, like I said, time was very well spent.
Yes.
A great segment. And I thank y'all once again, Dr. Ricard, Ms. Carter. Thank you so much again for taking your time, sacrificing your time. I feel like we need to do this every quarter.
I was just about to say, Dr. Ricard, Maya, um, Dr. Ricard said something within her presentation. She said that's something for another day. Whatever that was, that other day, we can make that happen.
Yes, I
Because
forgot
we
what it
do need
was.
this.
We'll
This is
find
just
it.
so needed.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
this is
said
just
that
so
sometimes we
needed.
grieve not being able to grieve because we just,
Yeah,
we're at
yeah,
a place and, sometimes we don't keep up with our own, grief progress. So sometimes we may find that we're not really sad. We might just be happy during the holidays and then we start feeling guilty.
because
Because we assume that dishonored the person. It assumes that, I shouldn't be laughing this much, because
mhm.
then it looks like I don't miss the person, but that's not true.
Yeah, and even I think grief may be triggered by the holidays. I mean,
Yeah,
you may be okay in the springtime, but when Christmas comes along, we're back
at the
down
same point. Yeah,
backwards. Yeah.
right.
So definitely, I think this is something that we can try to do again throughout the year because grief happens every day.
Yeah.
We just don't know how to handle it
Mm.
sometimes. So
Right.
um,
And I mean, it just grief in just a general sense of every day, grieving for people, you don't even know, but you're grieving because, just last night they had the baby on the news that had been beaten and was in the hospital, had all these things. And I mean, and I was just like, oh my God, and it was just so sad. And I felt so sorry for him and the grandmother that was speaking, and you could feel the pain and everything in her voice. And it's just like, it's so much that goes on, and people are hurting every day for so many different things
right.
that it's not just just one thing. It's just so many different things. So we just need to continue peeling those layers on everything that we're going through. So yes, I'm so happy that we have Dr. Ricard and Maya that we can call on, and they can come in and give us some more great advice.
Yes, thank you so
Thank
much.
you, ladies.
Yes. And before we log off, just a couple of just small announcements. I know we are going to have Bible study at Second Baptist on Thursday instead of Wednesday, and then we do have our Christmas church service Sunday at 9 a.m. So those are just a couple of things. Also, Pastor Cyrus is in recovery, so he's doing well. So
Yes,
glad to hear that. He was actually on the live tonight. So
yes.
that's a good thing. He's recovering well. So we continue to
Mhm.
lift him up in prayer. But again, you guys, thank you for tuning in. Again, we do have their contact information in the live. And so Shonda, maybe next time we do a cook along. So stay tuned for that.
Yes,
On
most
our next
definitely.
segment. Yeah, and if y'all have any suggestions of any topics we can talk about
Mhm.
health wise, we would definitely love to talk about it. But again, thank you guys. Again, thank you, Shonda, for joining us. Um, thank you everyone in the Facebook, YouTube world for joining.
Yes,
Um,
thank you.
have a good evening, everybody, and Merry
Have a good
Christmas.
evening. Merry Christmas.